let's get started. So for anybody who might be watching on Instagram or Facebook, if you want to ask questions, you're just going to have to jump on the Zoom feed, which is really easy to get to. You can go to the Mind Movement website, or if you have a question that you want me to answer after the fact, you can email questions to info@mindmovement.com, and we're totally happy to answer any questions that you might have. So if you have a question, just hop on Zoom and you can chat it to me, and I'm happy to answer it. So welcome to Mindfulness. This is a kind of a beginner mindfulness practice workshop. And so we're reviewing sort of the overview of what mindfulness is, but most importantly, how we can use it as a tool that can really ultimately transform our lives in a very positive way. So at Mind Movement, we have our own definition that is layered, and we're only on the very first level of our layered definition. It has three components: awareness, alignment, and allowing. And we're just scratching the surface now on the awareness part. So we've only done this, I think, 3 times. And it's great. You can follow along and kind of, be here for the whole journey, or just jump in and get whatever you can when you can. This stuff is helpful all the time. And you'll notice if you are following along, there's a lot of redundancy, and that's really on purpose, because the only way we learn is through habit, is through hearing the same things over and over again. And so that redundancy is actually really, really important. And so, like always, when you join me for any kind of mindfulness workshop, I'm just going to ask 3 things of you, because at its core, mindfulness is a practice. It's nice. It's fun intellectual information, and it's great to learn. But if we're not using it, then it's complete bogus nonsense and not helpful in any way, shape, or form. So if you're going to follow along, then I ask that you participate in this very specific way. So I ask that you try to give this your attention throughout. So to try to stay with it. And I know that's really hard. It's very difficult these days for us to give one thing our attention for any kind of prolonged period of time, but it's really important that we get that skill. And so by staying with me, you're developing that skill. The second practice that I'm going to ask you to partake in is to learn how to be present. And by be present, I mean paying attention, in this case to me, but you're paying attention to the moment. So you're letting whatever you're looking at in the here and now carry your focus, and you're trying to just be aware of that inner narrator. So most of us don't realize that we're always narrating the moment. We're not really fully in it. We're sort of in it once removed. Narrating. We're either watching ourselves and kind of judging how we're doing in any given moment, or we're oftentimes judging whatever we're looking at. So right now, maybe judging me, how I'm dressed, what I'm saying, whatever it is, watching the news, judging that. And that's fine. But the challenge is, what we're really trying to learn how to do with mindfulness is step out of that narrative, to step into a new space. And the only way to create that new space is to practice. So being present with me for the duration. And then finally, to listen to yourself. So in a non-judgmental way, key component of mindfulness is non-judgment, being neutral, maybe having that spirit of curiosity. Can you listen to your inner dialogue? So as you're giving me your attention, you're being present, if you do have narratives, if you do have thoughts, kind of, a running dialogue, can you notice it? Can you pay attention? Because level 1, where we are right now in the mindfulness journey, is awareness. And when we talk about awareness, we're talking about learning me, understanding who I really am, and how I might be interfering with my ability to feel the way I want to feel. In other words, where are my blind spots? Where are the things that I might be doing that's contributing to these outcomes I don't want in my life? in a way that I cannot see. So mindfulness, Mind Movement, we use mindfulness for two very specific reasons, although there are there's a million reasons to use mindfulness, to use meditation, to use yoga, but we do it for two very specific reasons. So first and foremost, and I'm just going to quickly run through these here. We do it to put space between you and you. What do I mean by that? Normally, we are moving so quickly from the time we open our eyes. So the way this normally goes, we have been trained to kind of wake up first thing in the morning. As soon as we realize we're awake, we start to scan. I call it the problem scan. We start to scan our brain for, okay, what day is it? What time is it? What do I have to do today? Like scanning for where's the biggest challenge in my day? How am I going to deal with it? When is it? How am I going to prepare for that? Where's the thing I don't want to deal with? Or if there's nothing ahead because it's a Sunday or Saturday or you're dealing with the coronavirus, then you might be thinking of something that happened yesterday and doing the problem scan, coming up with the worst thing you can think of left over from yesterday. Some people from last year, last month, 10,000, moments ago. So most of us are trained to really connect with that inner dialogue in this very kind of forced and manic way. And I don't mean manic in a pathological way. I just mean it's very quick. We're constantly moving at a very, like there's and because we've been taught that that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to just go balls to the wall, excuse my language, and keep kind of pushing, that's kind of what life is. It's a big competition, and we're constantly trying to achieve more and get more to climb this ladder, and that someday we'll be happy when we get to the end. And of course, if you're like many of us, you finally know that's not going to work, and that's not true. But then what? If that's not the answer, then what is? So what we have to do first and foremost is begin to put space between me and that crazy running narrative. And the only way to do that is to slow down. And that's not what we've been taught to do. So this is why many people will say to me, Sam, I cannot meditate, forget it. There's no way, I'm never going to do it. And I get it, because there's a million times that I don't want to sit down to meditate, because my nature too is that if I'm sitting down, I'm not being productive. So if I'm stopping and I'm just breathing and I'm pausing, that's not productive. Not realizing that it, in fact, is probably the most productive of all things that I could possibly do. And I'm not, that is, factually, right? That is the most productive use of my time, is slowing down. And if you stick around a while, you'll learn why, from a scientific perspective and just from a literal perspective. So we use it to put space between us and us, between me and me. And the reality is, I can't change anything if I don't know what the problem is. I can't change something I don't know is there. And we all have blind spots. We all have things that, we can't see about how we operate that are interfering with our ability to have whatever it is that we want that we don't have. And that's, mindfulness it's a wonderful stress reliever. It will, because of the fact that you're going to learn to slow down and you're going to learn to feel better, two beautiful gifts. Because of those things, you also learn how to begin to, with intention and authenticity, live the life you really want to live. So the answer to every question, whether it's how do I improve my life, how do I get what I want, how do I get the girl, how do I get the job, how do I feel better, how do I stop being, as anxious, an anxious maniac, the answer is always the same. The answer is develop a mindfulness practice, and all of the answers to all of those things start to show up for you. And if that's not clear how, again, stick around and it will be, So we use mindfulness first and foremost to put space between me and me so that I can begin to hear my inner dialogue. Now, once I start to hear myself, I can say, oh my God, I've been doing this thing I didn't know I was doing. And that's why I'm not getting the results that I want. And again, this isn't about, and I want to be very clear. Remember, the definition of mindfulness involves not being judgmental. So what we're really saying, we're being intentional. We're giving our attention to the here and now. We're doing it right on purpose. We're doing it in the here and now, and we're doing it non-judgmentally. And that is a key component to this experience, to your success, and to the process. Because if I'm going to judge myself at every stage of the game, this is going to be a very painful process, and it's going to end up, instead of helping me, it's going to end up hurting me. So this isn't about judging ourselves or blaming ourselves, not at all. This is about understanding the mechanics of how the mind and body work, and then leveraging those mechanics to work for you instead of working against you. Because the bottom line is, whether you know it or not, you are interfering with your ability to have the life that you ideally would like to have. You just haven't been taught how this mind and body system works, so you don't know that, tragically. And that's what this conversation is all about, is helping you have the correct information that will help you to leverage this mind and body system to get the life ultimately you want. And then the second way and reason that we use mindfulness is to feel better fast. So most people don't know this, but meditation is the fastest way to improve your mood. And that's because, and we're going to talk about this now, that's because of how emotions work in the mind and the body. Now, that's true. And I want to say, I'm just going to sort of add a little addendum to that statement. Meditation is the fastest way to improve how you feel outside of using mood enhancements or, mind altering substances, illicit drugs, and alcohol. Those things, it's true that those things work much more quickly. The problem with those things is that you always have to pay the price on the other side. With meditation, there's not a price to pay on the other side. So yes, it's true. Those things also do that. But like I said, you often have to pay a pretty hefty price to get that relief. So meditation, what it does is it eviscerates, it eliminates negative emotion. And by negative, I don't mean like good and bad, like there's good and bad emotion. That's not what I mean. What I mean is, there's a scale. On the top would be like the positive charge, and on the bottom would be the negative charge. And negative emotions, anything under boredom, so boredom, anger, frustration, victimization, depression, all of those are sort of in the negative column. And so it's not that we're saying they're bad. Again, remember, non-judgment is a huge part of all of this. Can't take that out of any of this conversation. But because of the way that emotions work, the only way to get to those higher, more positive emotional experiences is to get to neutral. So, and I'll explain that in a minute. So mindfulness is also a practice of feeling better by immediately bringing your attention to the here and now. And all of this, whether it's meditation, whether it's mindfulness, whether it's breath work, mantras, affirmations, journaling, yoga, I mean, we'll go through a whole list in a minute. All of those practices are designed to do one thing, first and foremost, bring your attention to the here and now so that you can feel better right away. So that's what it's all about. And on this slide, which some of you can't see, there's a comprehensive list of different ways to begin to eviscerate negative emotion and to get into the present. But before we do that, I want to make sure that we're all on the same page about the emotional scale. So the emotional scale, and this is so important. So the emotional scale is, your emotions, believe it or not, are kind of weighted. So, and what you don't know is that you live in pretty much a certain range. Like the average person, we like to be comfortable. We don't love to be in the extremes because it's uncomfortable. It makes us a little anxious. Like right now, part of why this time is so hard is because it's just riddled with the unknown, uncertainty, and uncertainty equals anxiety, equals fear for us. Many of us will stay in a miserable situation because it's comfortable and predictable, even though it's miserable, and will stay a lot longer than we maybe want to, or maybe arguably should. So when you look at this emotional scale, what you'll see is we tend to live in averages. So we're living in the middle. Rarely are we, in the realm of like spiritual enlightenment, right? Floating around in space. And rarely are we living perpetually in a place of such despair and hopelessness that, we're suicidal and contemplating suicide all the time. And hopefully, if that's even something you identify with at all, that you're getting help for that. So most of us are in the middle. We're sort of in like between like happy, like, yeah, I'm content, happy, and like some frustration. So we're living in that range in the middle. Sam, why is this important? This is important because the name of the game, so what mindfulness is all about is about slowly building a mood average. So living in a range that is incrementally higher and higher over time. That's what we're trying to do. If you think about like being like having an anchor and it's weighing you down, right? So it's holding you into the water. When we start to practice mindfulness, it's like you're like letting go of weight. So it's like 5 pounds at a time are dropping off of you, and you're slowly coming up to the surface of the water. That's what mindfulness does. It sort of lightens you so that you're coming up, 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 up. Now, that's important because of the way the brain operates. And this is the part that, again, we're so poorly taught, and we're not told this. We don't know this. So, we're taught that our thoughts don't matter, but in fact, it's really the opposite. Your thoughts matter more than anything else. So, meaning they are very physical, and they are driving the inner structure, the inner experience. So if I am living in in these lower emotional states, if I'm living in anger, if I'm living in a lot of fear, if I'm living in a lot of even boredom, just really focused on the things I don't like, the things I don't want, the things I'm afraid of, day in and day out, focused on that stuff, then what's happening is that part of the wiring in my brain that is connected to all of those things in my memory bank that are associated with anger and frustration and fear and sadness, those are the things that I'm having greater and greater access to at any given moment, because that's where I'm living in my emotions. So what we don't know is your thoughts, your brain operates by mood. Thoughts are mood dependent. So the direction that your thinking is going at any given time is based on how you feel. And the problem is, it's estimated that 80% of our superhighway wiring in the brain is negative. Negative meaning in those lower level emotions. So, and by lower level, basically boredom is kind of the middle mark, or like neutral. So like not necessarily indifferent, but like slightly above indifference, I guess. That would be like the middle range, and then anything below that is considered negative. Again, not good or bad, just in those lower level emotions. And so if you think about it, 80% of that wiring for the average person is focused in those negative emotional experiences. There's a reason for that. Some of you already know. It's called the negativity bias, and we've talked about it before. We're not going to get into it now. So the reason, again, I'm bringing this up is because your job with mindfulness, yoga, meditation, right? The reason we're talking about all this is because when you develop these skills, you start to shed these lower level emotions. You start to kind of rise up, 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 up. And now your thoughts, the thoughts you have access to, the super highway in your brain begins to change. It begins to pull into your awareness, into your perceptual field, far more optimistic outlooks, far more connections, social interactions, far more of what you really ultimately want and feel good about, rather than what you've been getting to this point. And that's what it's all about. So the other reason, or so at Mind Movement, we talk about integration. Integration essentially means the slow learning of something. And now learning has levels, and we all know this. If you attended school at any point in your life, whether it was like, third grade up through many years into college, you know that like if you study for a test, you probably know it enough to at some point regurgitate it, to put it, spit it back on a test. But if you asked me like 6 months later the same questions, in all likelihood, I could probably pull some mumbo jumbo together, but it's going to be BS. The thing is, there are levels to learning. And mindfulness, where we're trying to get the objective, the name of the game, is to get to that place of automation, full integration. So integration from the mind movement perspective means it's just how I am. It's automatic. I have, this experience happens, and without thinking, I just, immediately start breathing a certain way. I immediately know to go into my slow exhale. I immediately know to go into my ujjayi breath. I immediately know this emotional experience is a cue to go meditate, or to go, take a 5-minute breather, whatever it is. That's what mindfulness practice is about. It's about developing both sides, this awareness. So developing the side of knowing myself, hearing myself and my inner dialogue and my emotional experiences, knowing myself so well that I'm able to kind of like cut myself off at the pass and intercept where that maybe would have gone had I not done this work, and immediately start to move myself back up that emotional, right, that emotional scale. Because why would that be important? Because again, your entire world, right, everything that you're experiencing is a byproduct of the sum total of the superhighway, all of the neurotransmitter activity you've got going on, all of what your prior experiences, all of your memories, your perception. And your perception, hate to be the bearer of bad news, is completely biased. It's completely subjective. And it is you're interpreting your world around you based on how you feel. And so trying to ensure that we have the most positive and productive experience that we can in our lives, we're trying to hedge our bets by feeling the best that we can, which is obviously how we stay healthy and strong anyway. So there's nothing but benefit, from practicing mindfulness. So level 1, awareness. We're using mindfulness to put space between me and to feel better. Really simple, to develop a system for feeling better. Now, change only happens one way. You can use mindfulness to and I hate the word cure, that's not the right word, but for lack of a better way to say it, you can use mindfulness to overcome depression, anxiety, addictive disorders. You can use it to overcome relationship problems. You can use it to overcome a breakup, loss, grief and loss. You can use it to, there are stories of people who have, lost children, God forbid, and have used mindfulness practice to turn that horrible loss that they feel into, a life-changing positive experience for other people. So, learning how to use these tools can really turn into anything that you want it to turn into. And that's why we spend so much time on it. That's why I've spent the last 12 years studying it day in and day out. And that's why I think it's so important to get to you guys. So I want to talk about, before we get into this list of the practice basics, I want to get into habituation for a moment and just help people understand what that really means, because there's only two ways to learn. So remember, at the end of the day, I mentioned that the objective is to react immediately without having to think in a certain way, in a mindful way. That's where we're trying to get. We call it the embodiment. And with our clients, that's what we're trying to teach our clients too. How do I learn to not just like intellectually understand, Sam, what you're saying, but how do I learn to embody the concepts and live it all the time? Not just think it, but live it. So that is the critical question. Well, this is the answer. How do I do that? Well, you've only got two options, because learning only happens two ways. It happens in the conscious realm, where, by conscious realm, the same way that we learn how to do anything. We learn to, learn a new language, learn to, develop muscles, learn to whatever, right? Learn to ride a bike, learn to dance, anything that we pick up as a new skill that becomes something we know how to do, that sort of falls into the conscious realm. So the unconscious realm of learning, remember, there are two ways to learn. One is through habituation in the conscious, and the other is in the unconscious. And that's like everything you learned before 7 years old. Because when you turn 7, before you're in 7, your brain is in a different state. It's in what's called the theta state. And so basically that's why little kids are just like sponges, and they really are. They're like, every second is a learning moment. They're learning from their experience in the first person as it's happening. And they're building, what's happening there is they're building all of those foundation beliefs, all of the way that they're going to look at the world forever later, for the rest of their lives, is being laid in foundation from 0 to 7. So all the ways that we react now as adults essentially really have their roots in whatever happened from 0 to 7. Now, some of the things that we maybe learned at that time were helpful and really are wonderful gifts. And some of the things maybe not so helpful, maybe not so useful as adults. And that's where we get into challenges. So what kinds of things might show up that aren't useful? Well, let's say that I have money problems. For most people, struggles around money start in 0 to 7. They start because they're watching the people that they were raised around. They're watching their family, their caregivers. They're looking at those relationships, how they had a relationship with financial health, and they're essentially, mimicking the same behaviors. And again, we're not talking good or bad, and that we're not judging here. We're just sort of speaking factually. So the challenge that we're faced with is, it's much easier. It would be amazing if we could learn in the unconscious how to undo those kinds of early habits or that early programming, but it's a lot more complicated than that. So once those early programs are laid in foundation, it's pretty challenging to, you can't erase them, and put it that way. So you're not going to erase, one of those early foundational programs, but you can learn to build another one, a competing one. So it's like, I think of like driving down Route 95 at the brain level. It's a well-traveled superhighway. So anything that you do a lot of is like I-95. It's a well-traveled superhighway. If you do it all the time, your brain it's so automatic. You don't think about it, you just do it, and you do it over and over again. Think of like a cigarette smoker. They wake up, they reach for their cigarettes, they light them. They don't think, should I have a cigarette now? No, that wouldn't, no, it's just give me those cigarettes, right? And that's what happens. That's what addiction looks like. It's an automated behavior. And of course we do it all the time. It's not just with cigarettes, right? We brush our teeth, we get up and go into the kitchen to make coffee. Like every little thing we do all day long essentially is a habit, is an automated behavior. We're not thinking about it. So here's the challenge. The brain and the body, at the end of the day, we are efficiency vehicles. Everything is about efficiency. The body has one main objective all the time, whether you know it or not, and it's to survive. It's to survive, and it's to keep you alive in the event of an emergency. So you have all these adaptations the body has made over the last hundreds of thousands of years, the sum total of which is, right, like the best practices. So what that means is anytime the body and brain can make something automatic, it means that I am using less energy, which means I have more energy in reserves in case of an emergency, in case the coronavirus happens and I need to be able to really like pull it together and figure out how I'm going to get through this. So we have this part of us that's always looking to automate everything. And because of that, unfortunately, the brain doesn't go, Sam, this behavior is not good for you, so I'm not going to automate this one. I'm just going to automate the stuff that's healthy and adaptive and that's going to get you, the big stuff that you want later in life. It doesn't work that way, right? So the brain has it only knows what you tell it. There's no objective brain. It's you. So whatever it is that you're giving your attention to, whatever it is you're doing day in and day out, it just automates that stuff. It doesn't matter if it's healthy or unhealthy. And that's ultimately the problem. That's what addiction actually is. It is the adaptation or automation of the use of toxic substances. So it's the body trying to adapt to you continually making the decision to put in these toxic chemicals. The adaptation, the adjustment the body makes to you doing that is what we call addiction. So, but all of that to say that for the most part, it really works to our advantage. Most of the time, this habituation tendency that we love, it works to our advantage. It's the reason why I don't have to learn to tie my shoes ever, more than once. I don't have to learn how to ride a bike more than once or drive a car. Like once I learn it, I know it, that's it. And now I don't have to give that any more energy or focus. So that's the key. That's how we adapt. That's how our lives can just keep growing into these like amazing lives where we don't have to keep learning everything all over again every day. Great, wonderful. Here's the challenge. When we pick up things that are not serving us and those become automated, it's a lot trickier to change it. So let's say, and I use addiction as an example a lot because it's so clear. It's just an easy example of, what I'm speaking about. But, brushing your teeth is a habit. Sleeping on your left side or your right side is a habit. Everything, the language, the way we speak, do I swear? Do I not swear? Do I say, everything we do is basically automated. And everything we think is also automated. And that's really the important piece. So that said, what happens when I develop a maladaptive, an unhealthy, or more, maybe not unhealthy, unhelpful habit that is really hurting me? And I'll give you the perfect example of one. So yes, there's an obvious one, like using cocaine. If I use cocaine every day, we would all agree, a pretty unhealthy habit. So there's that. But another one that might be a lot more insidious or harder to really see is complaining. So do I put on the news first thing in the morning and start to instantly connect with that judgmental, critical, negative, intellectualized voice. Now, I used to do this for a long time, so it's something I know well. I thought that in doing that, I was waking up. I liked it. I enjoyed watching the news or listening to the news, whatever, while I was getting dressed in the morning. And I thought I was connecting to the world and learning about what's going on. And at that time, it was all politics, and so it was, it wasn't all rainbows and sunshine. It wasn't happy stuff. It was heavy stuff, or things that were interesting intellectually, but they came with a price, and that price was, you know, negative emotion. Again, negative, like those low level emotions. So it was anger, sadness, frustration, injustice. You should put a pin in injustice, because that one is really tough for us as to let go of. So, but when I connect to injustice, what am I really connecting to? I'm connecting to the feeling of being a victim. I'm connecting to powerlessness. Somebody screwed me over. Somebody's doing something to me that feels wrong that I don't have a say in. They're doing it to me, and it's wrong. So it's a feeling of victimization, of powerlessness. Now, as soon as I connect to that feeling, right now, again, remember, thoughts are state dependent, mood dependent. So now my brain is scanning all of its wiring to find more memories, thoughts, experiences that are matching of that injustice. I remember that time that somebody screwed me over. And again, this is not happening at a conscious level, it's all happening unconsciously. So now what happens is that injustice feeling picks up momentum. And now I'm getting ready, and I don't know what's happening. So I'm getting ready to go out into the world. So I get out into the world, and what happens? Somebody walks very slowly in front of me on my way to the subway. Then I get close to the subway, someone drops something, and now I have to wait. I'm not able to get down the subway steps because someone's picking up a mess in front of me. Then I get down there and I just missed the train again. So what starts to happen is, no matter what's going on in front of me, my perception is that there's an injustice being waged against me at every moment. And if you don't believe me, try this, because this is not a game and it's not a metaphor. It's quite literal. This is literally what happens at the level of the brain and the level of perception. And that is what happened to me when I was watching the news every single morning. Now, the thing that I did know, I knew better and I knew it was going to happen, but I chose to do it anyway. So, but what most people don't know is that morning time is critical. Morning time, interestingly enough, is special. It's a time when our brain is in a similar place to when we were kids. Remember, I said from 0 to 7, we're in that theta brain wave state. And, as adults, we go into beta, and alpha, we go into beta, right? We go into that prefrontal cortex, heavy, right? Intellectualized problem solving. And that's not what childhood is about. That's not what kids are doing, right? They're building the foundation. But in the morning, we have more access to different parts of our brain. So if we can connect to that more like even, neutral, mindful, present, non-judgmental part of us, we're sort of preparing, or we're paving the foundation for a productive, positive, a fruitful day, rather than paving the day with a lot of negativity or negativity bias. So, and think of it this way: everything you do, there's a consequence. Whether you like it or not, whether you do it on purpose or not, like, it doesn't matter if it's intentional or non-intentional, if you're not the one that did it or if somebody did it to you, the outcomes are always the same. Whatever I'm looking at, whatever I give my attention to, is creating how I feel, which is then creating more of what I'm thinking, which is then creating more of what I'm feeling. And the end result is what you're getting right now playing out in front of you in real life. So being able to, and we say it, look, it's It's not our fault, but it is our responsibility. And the thing that I love about this is once you really understand the gravity of what I'm saying and it really starts to like settle and sink in and you really get in like that embodied way, what I'm saying, what it really amounts to is you have control. You have control. You can make the decision to live a very different life and as a result have very different outcomes than what you have now. And that's really like that's the silver lining. So yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of challenges along the way, but if you kind of get serious about this and start to develop a practice, something as simple as 15 minutes a day of meditation over 3 months, you'll start to see a profound change, and not just in how you feel, but in your life as it plays out around you too. So with the little time we have, I want to shift into a conversation about practices or best practices. So you'll see that, let me just quickly go through this here. Um, there's a list, and I can post this to the website too. And it says, awareness basic practices. So these are like the level 101 types of assignments we give to people at Mind Movement to try to help them start to get a handle on mindfulness. Besides just, meditation, Sam, because let's be honest, not everyone's going to do it, number one. And it's not easy to do. So we've got to find other types of methods besides just meditation. It can't be so all or nothing. And beautiful, if you can start with meditation, do it. But if that's not accessible to you, we've got to give you some other tools. So for example, one exercise that I think Mind Movements, one of our education counselor and fitness coaches, Nikki, brought up a couple days ago, the color exercise. So, this is all about perception. So how can I control on purpose what I give my attention to? So we've been taught that whatever is playing out in front of me, that's what I have to give my attention to. So in other words, if somebody treats me poorly on the street and flips me off, how can I feel good, Sam? Someone just told me to fuck off. So, how do I not respond to that? How can I not flip them off back? Or, somebody cut me off on the highway. Like, how do you expect me to not, scream out the window back at them? Like, they started it. So, and I get it. I'm not saying any of this is easy, but I am saying that if you can learn that you can do that, you can scream out the window back, but it's only us that we hurt. See, because what we're doing, we start to fall down that negative emotion scale. And so what happens, your thoughts follow suit. So if I'm driving in my car and I'm just, singing along with the radio, somebody cuts me off, and the next thing I know, I'm flipping them off, fuck you, you asshole, blah, blah, blah. So now I'm frustrated. And even after this guy drives away and he's long out of my view, I'm still thinking about it, and I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking about it. As I'm thinking about it, I'm connecting without knowing it to the emotion of injustice. This guy just fucked me over. Maybe I'm starting to think I should have done more. Maybe I'm starting to think about other times where something similar has happened. But now that emotion is gaining momentum, and without me knowing it, it's starting to drive the direction of my thinking. So now as I try to pivot away from that experience and go back to my day, well, what was I doing? Oh, I was on my way to see a friend. I don't really want to go see this friend anyway. This friend, they always complain. I'm so sick of them. So you don't know, but what's happening is that experience and you're connecting to it has just colored your perception. And that's what goes on all day, every second. We don't know that's what's happening. We think that it's the circumstances that's controlling how we feel, but that's not true. It's our interpretation of the circumstances. It's not being deliberate and intentional about what we give our focus to, or taking responsibility for how we feel. And as I'm saying, that's nobody's fault. This isn't about who's right or wrong. This is about, do I want to be happy? Do I want to live in the happy, healthy, like live happily ever after realm? Or do I want to live in being right and injustice and pointing out all the ways that other people suck, which we can do. And that is a choice. You know, that's always a choice. And I mean that, like, you know, change is a choice that you don't have to make. So controlling your focus, it really means being aware of what I'm giving my attention to. One exercise that we use to practice this is what we call the colors exercise. Colors exercise is so simple. I mean, a lot of these are just so simple, but they're effective, and that's why we use them. So if I'm really struggling, let's say that I suffered a really bad breakup, and I can't stop thinking about it, and it's driving. I'm hurting like every time I think about it, or maybe a loss. My family, you know, has suffered a loss in the coronavirus. When I think about that loss, I get heartbroken. My heart starts to hurt, and I can feel myself wanting to get teary-eyed, right? So it gets me sad immediately. Now, if I don't want to be sad at this moment, if I'm saying, you know what, this isn't the right time for this, I'm, you know, or I've done my grieving and it's time for me now to start to move on, right? Or I've been out of this relationship for months, it's time for me to move on. So one of the exercises is what we call colors exercises. Very simple. Let's say I'm walking outside to go to work on a normal, you know, when things get back to normal. I just choose a color, choose green, and then your job is to look for green. Where's green? Where can I see green? There's green in that sign. There's green in that shirt. There's green. Now, the really cool thing about this exercise is that when you do that, all of a sudden, I'll never forget this. One day I was doing it with the color green, and as I, you know, walked down the street, this whole group of campers in fluorescent green shirts, there had to be 100 of them, turned the corner and started walking down the street. So, you know, and then I was hilarious. It was hysterical. I just started giggling to myself because here I am upset, looking for green. I'm so upset that I'm using the color exercise. And then this troop of campers turns the corner wearing the color I was looking for. And it was funny. So now I've broken that connection, that focus on that thing that was causing that really intense negative emotion. And now, like I said earlier, now it's like I shed some weight, and now I can come up. I start to float up the emotional scale. Lo and behold, I feel a little better. Now my thoughts have shifted. They're a little bit more positive, maybe a little bit more neutral, that kind of thing. So colors, really simple. You're just choosing a color at random and looking for it and looking for it and looking for it. And, you know, you can switch, look for green, look for red, look for blue, that kind of thing. Then we use what's called grounding exercises. Grounding exercises are really important. They are particularly when you're afraid. So colors I may not be afraid. I might be sad. I might be angry. I might be, maybe I have like a big job interview, and being angry and sad is not the kind of emotion that I want to be feeling right now. That's where the colors exercise would be a great tool. But if I'm scared, if I am literally scared, then the grounding exercise. So when we're scared, the name of the game is to tell the nervous system that you're safe. Name of the game is tell the nervous system, send the message to the body that you are not under threat of extinction. You are not going to die in this moment. So what that looks like is find ways to feel safe. So of course, the first thing that I'll always recommend is do that really slow exhale, just nice deep inhale, and then the slowest possible exhale, doing that 3 times. That's the first signal, the breath that tells the body, yeah, guys, look, no, false alarm, all is well. But then what we do is we ground. Grounding looks like putting both feet on the floor, right? Sitting up, looking at your feet, looking at your hands, looking, you know, around the room. Where am I right now? I'm in my daughter's bedroom, just kind of reorienting to the environment that I'm in right now. again, remember the thing that these exercises all have in common, they're designed to bring your attention into the present moment, into the here and now. And that's the critical piece. That's what we're looking to do. We're looking to bring our attention into the here and now and let all of that negative inner dialogue, let it all go. Just for now. You can have it back later, but letting it go for now. Some other exercises, we use the showers exercise. So heat therapy, hot and cold, in a certain pattern, or just grabbing ice cubes. Again, these are ways that we're leveraging the body to get to the mind. So that's what this is all about. We leverage the mind to get to the body and the body to get to the mind. Another is, we call it waves, but you can do clouds, where you literally imagine your thoughts like a wave. It's coming in and going out, or like a cloud. You see you see your thoughts coming in, and you can thank it. Thank you, thoughts. Thank you for your input, and we'll see you later, and let it pass. We can use all these little tricks that in the end, they work. They really allow us some space between what we're thinking and what we're feeling, so we can be intentional about our thoughts and start to really learn that we can leverage our thoughts, which change how we feel, which change our thinking, which change our whole universe. And then finally, the last one I want to say, just because we're almost out of time, is the love letter. So this is a great exercise as a starting point, because it is hard. It's hard for people. If a love letter to yourself sounds even a little bit too intense, then there's an audio that is up on our website. It's called Love Letter from the Universe. I strongly suggest you check it out. You can probably Google it and have it come up too. And it's just an audio of, somebody speaking to you as though you're speaking to yourself. So understanding that so much of how we think, how we behave, what we're really after is a sense of self-worth. And as corny as that may sound, when you strip it all away, at the end of it all, that's really what is there. What's there is a sense of, I am good enough. I can trust myself. I can trust that I'm okay, and I'm going to be okay. All of those kinds of really primal kind of emotional places is what we're really after. And so when we start to improve our relationship with ourselves, everything starts to improve as well. So you'll see as we go along things like mirror work, talking to yourself in a really positive way in the mirror, talking to yourself in a letter, even if it's just, or an affirmation. I like myself today, or you look pretty today, or you look hot today, or I like that you in that outfit. Whatever it is, starting to get much nicer to yourself. Learning how to develop that language is a really important kind of sister starting point to all these other exercises, all the breath techniques, all the exercises designed to control your focus, to help ground you, starting to develop a kinder relationship with yourself also. Really, really important stuff. So what I'll do is I'll put these slides that I'm looking at in front of me now, for those that can't see it, up on the website so that you can take a look yourself. There's lots of other resources on the site too, if you missed any of what we're talking about. And we'll continue. So, there are two other components to mindfulness. There's the awareness, there's the alignment, and then there's the allowing. And they're all really critical components to pay attention to and to understand, so that you can really start to figure out how to leverage this mind and body that you have to really see positive results in all the areas of your life that you want, and just feel good and be healthy. So thank you so much for your attention. I so appreciate it. I hope it was helpful. If you have questions, please feel free to email them to info@mindmovement.com, or you can jump on Zoom at any time and send them to us via chat. Have a wonderful night. Be well, stay safe, and take care.